Lovely. Awesome. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. So we've heard a bunch of fantastic information about all the stages of the hiring pipeline. So I guess I'm here to close it, to talk about the last step of hiring someone, which is actually making an offer. I want to start with a story about my friend, who I'm going to call Phil. Not his real name, also not a real picture. This is a stock photo. But Phil's someone I've known for most of my career. We're at similar points. We've been working in various engineering roles, also information security for about 20 years, some senior leadership positions, some senior IC positions. And we talk very openly about money and compensation. I know his complete compensation history. He knows mine. We've thrown offers back and forth. So around the new year, Phil started looking for a new job, and we had been chatting back and forth about the places he was looking, about his interviews. And then as the offers started rolling in, he started telling me about some of his offers. And one evening I got some texts from Phil. He had been offered a compensation package of over $1 million, and he turned it down. So that's what I want to talk about. How do you make an offer when other companies are out there offering $1 million? Salaries, at least in the US, have absolutely skyrocketed over the last couple of years. I think this is starting to pause a little bit, but I don't really expect it to go down by very much. It's not uncommon for even entry-level positions to see a six-figure offer. It's pretty hard in the US to hire a mid-range engineer, someone with 3 to 5 years of experience for under 200,000 maybe. And we're even seeing, these seven-figure offers that my friend got. Certainly an outlier, but not as much as they used to be. That used to be unheard of outside of like senior executive roles, managing partner type roles. So I am operating under the assumption that most people here, most people listening are not going to be able to offer at the very, very top of this inflated range. So how do you put together a compelling offer when your dog barks at the delivery people, when you're likely to be outbid? I'm going to cover 3 aspects: cash, the company culture, and the benefits that you offer. So we've already heard that you should disclose all of this up front. Sorry, give me 1 second. I have to take care of the dog. I'm so sorry about this. Perils of working from home.
No problem. I'll jump in here. Well, I managed to get rid of my dog right before the beginning of this session, so otherwise it would have
all
been
right. You don't get that at an in-person conference, do you?
You don't indeed. Over to you.
So we've talked about disclosing up front. I'm so glad Luca made that point about the data that he saw out of hiring boards. You need to discuss all of this up front. Making this a bait and switch is just silly. If you know that you're not going to be competitive, you need to be even more clear about your compensation package. As an example, the company I work for now, we don't really do locality-based adjustment. We offer competitive salaries sort of against the national average, but that's going to be different in different locations. So when I speak to a candidate from San Francisco or New York or Portland, I have to make it pretty clear right up front that like, hey, our offer is going to look not great compared to some of the stuff you're seeing locally. And, you're going to have to decide if the other aspects we're offering are worth it. I usually do this both in the job ad and then also at the initial phone screen. And really, I want to be giving people a chance to select out. If we're going to get to the end and, the top of my range is below the bottom of theirs, we've just wasted everyone's time. So most important aspect of an offer is going to be cash. There's no getting around this. If you can afford to offer a 7-figure compensation package, then you can end your conference early. But even if you can't, you do need to be reasonably competitive. You need to know where you stand relative to the rest of the industry. You need to be making an offer that is within range for the other offers that people are looking at. If you're dramatically below what a person is expected, it's going to make you look like you're cheap, or that you haven't done your homework, or that you're trying to take advantage of someone. Not good things to show during a job ad. The best data I know here comes from paid products like the Radford surveys. If not, you can get there by looking at salary data from levels.fyi, which is very up-to-date but heavily Bay Area focused. And then a company called Robert Half publishes some pretty good locality adjustment data. I wrote a blog post about this a while back, covering this from the point of view of candidates, but that goes over the math in there for figuring out a adjusted average. By the way, this advice is mostly for the United States. I mostly hire people in the US. I know we have a lot of international people here, so hopefully there is similar information for where you are, but I'm less familiar with that. Generally, if you're trying to choose between offering more benefits or offering more cash, choose cash. If you want a funny example of this, take a look at eBay right around the holidays. You'll see tons of company gift cards showing up as companies like Home Depot and Walmart and all of those big box stores pay out bonuses and gift cards, and employees try to trade them and barter them for actual money. You should always maximize cash first before looking at other things. And you need to know what your organization's pay bands are going to be. You need to know what your upper and lower ranges, where your flexibility is and where you're not. If you're going into hiring without existing pay bands, you need to write some down. If you don't, you're basically making it up for every candidate, and that's a great recipe for inequality to sneak in. So once you've maximized your salary, once you know what you're going to offer, the next thing to think about is culture. So within roughly similar salary ranges, candidates will often choose based on the company that fits them the best. This is exactly what happened with my friend. He was being offered objectively great salaries. Even his quote unquote worst offer was still pretty fantastic. So he was free to make choices based on other things. And usually those other things is going to mean culture. And the point that I want to make about culture is that your culture, like you're showing your culture. You're not telling people what your culture is. I don't care what your company's values page says. What you show them during your hiring process is how they're going to judge your company culture. If you make them do silly exercises as part of the interview process, they'll conclude that the work is often silly, busy work. If you're bad at communication, if it takes you days to get back to them with questions, they'll conclude that you're bad at communication. If you're late to interviews, they'll conclude that your company doesn't prioritize being on time. If you don't respect their time, and once they've started, they'll conclude that you won't respect their time later on. Luckily, you've just had an entire conference of people giving you advice on how to be kind and equitable and respectful during your hiring process. What I'm here to tell you is if you don't take the advice that you heard earlier today, it doesn't matter how good your offer is. There's no hacks here at the offer stage to make up for a poor candidate experience. Your offer begins when they apply for the job. Keep that in mind. So the last little bit that will help people decide on jobs are benefits. And benefits are interesting. Good benefits can't really make up for low pay or a bad culture. You're not going to be able to convince someone to take a 50% pay cut because you have free lunch. But really, especially bad benefits can be a deal breaker. And great benefits can sometimes be a deciding factor. Here in the States, healthcare is a huge thing. I've had candidates who couldn't apply for jobs that I was listing because they needed a very specific insurer who wasn't offered on our healthcare plan. That's the type of thing I'm talking about, where if you have non-competitive benefits, they can sometimes be an absolute deal breaker for certain people. A trap that people fall into when they're thinking about benefits is thinking about how to offer benefits in an equitable way. You'll have someone who asks for a flexible schedule. Hey, I want to take Fridays off, work a 4-day work week. And some managers will think, well, if I offer this to this person, I have to offer it to everyone. And I can't offer it to everyone for whatever reason. But that's not how it works. Equal is not the same as equitable. You don't need to offer everyone exactly the same thing to offer people fair things. You certainly need equity, right? Everyone who's a software engineer too needs to be paid within the same pay range. And you need to offer benefits in a logical manner. If there's a reason why Jane can work a 4-day week and someone else can't, you need to be able to explain that to the other person. But it's absolutely reasonable for benefits to differ based on job duties, based on seniority, based on scope of work, based on personal circumstances, either formal accommodations or other, et cetera. And in fact, it's probably a good idea for benefits to be the place where you have a lot of flexibility, because they'll be worth different things to different people. Speaking personally, time off is hugely important to me. I do better work when I have a good amount of time to not be working. I will almost always take a pay cut in exchange for more time off, but that's not true for everyone else. If someone else has, saving up for a down payment on a house, or, is trying to maximize their savings for retirement, they might make a very different trade-off, and that is totally fine. So I want to talk about benefits in 2 different categories. The first is what I think of as sort of corporate benefits. These are the things that your HR department or your company is usually responsible for, and these are relatively even across all employees. You can't offer this one person a different healthcare plan than the rest of your company. You don't have a different 401k match for different people. I'm not going to go through all of these different things. I do want to focus on a couple that I think are particularly important. One is student loan repayments. A lot of managers, a lot of companies in the US don't know this, but about 2 years ago, a new law was passed that allows companies to make student loan repayments out of pre-tax money. So it's tax deductible for the company, putting it in the same categories like 401k matches. This can be a really key benefit, especially if you're hiring people somewhat earlier in their careers where they may still have student loans. A lot of times people think about 401k match, but they don't think about student loan repayments. And so you end up offering better benefits to people who are later in their careers than earlier, which is not great. The other really good one to think about is what I think of as company culture benefits, things that align with what your company is trying to do. I have a friend who works for a sports fitness company. They make like watches and stuff for runners, and they offer free entry to races. They'll basically pay race entry fees for everyone who works there, and this aligns super well with what the company is doing. Right, they're making equipment for athletes and they're subsidizing their employees who are athletes. These are the type of fun little things that just go a long way towards sending a message about your company culture through the benefits that you offer. Now, you probably don't have as much direct control over corporate benefits. Unless you're an executive or at a very small company, you probably can't change your healthcare plan or your 401k match. But you should be aware of what they are and where they stand relative to the industry. And if they're bad, you should be pushing for an improvement as over time as a strategic factor. In contrast, there are a number of benefits that you probably do have a lot of control over. And these are team level benefits. These are things that you can control on behalf of your team. I'm seeing some discussion about dogs in the chat. So this would absolutely be a team level benefit. If you have a physical workspace, you might be able to figure out a way to make your team either pro dog or no dogs, depending on the specific makeup of your specific team. And this doesn't have to be something that applies to the entire company, maybe depending on the physical layout of your office or whatever. Time off is also something you have a lot of control of as a manager. Remote work, certainly. A big one is getting to work on a diverse team. You absolutely have control over that as a manager. If you hire a diverse team, you will attract a more diverse team. Opportunity for advancement is another huge one. A lot of time managers think they don't have a ton of power here. And the main message I want to send here is you have a lot more power over these team level benefits than you might think. I like to encourage managers to follow what I call the reserved powers doctrine. The 10th Amendment of the US Constitution says that the powers not delegated, not explicitly assigned to Congress, are implicitly assigned to the state. And I like to encourage managers to behave that way with their team. Anything that the company hasn't said is a company responsibility is implicitly your responsibility. So if your company hasn't said that you can't allow a flexible schedule, then allow a flexible schedule. If your company hasn't said that you can't give someone additional time off, give them additional time off. Generally, unless you have a good relationship with HR, this is like a little bit of realpolitik here. Typically, don't ask HR unless you know that you have a good one. They tend to focus on equal over equitable. I would start with your boss. And if your boss says yes, then take yes for an answer. And escalate if you must. Getting the talent you want on your team. I mean, look, as a manager, you're going to be judged based on the performance of your team. So hiring the right person to help your team perform is absolutely a hill worth dying on. In some circumstances, it might be worth it making an under the table deal. If HR has said you can't allow people to have a 4-day work week. Is it the worst thing in the world to tell that person, hey, you know what? You just don't work on Friday and I won't ask you for anything on Friday and we'll leave it at that. This is risky for you and even more so for the candidate. So you need to be transparent about them, let them know like, hey, this is a special deal. We have to be careful with this or something like that. But it's not the worst thing in the world. I've done it on occasion on both sides of that sort of under the table deal and it can be okay. But be careful with that one. So in the last couple of minutes, I want to talk about the logistics of actually making the offer. So speed is really important here. Your candidate is interviewing, the candidate you love is interviewing elsewhere. As soon as you've made the decision, like I'm talking like, within minutes of making the decision, send them something saying, hey, we're going to make you an offer. This is why you need to know all of the previous things I've talked about really inside and out. You need to be able to have all the pieces together, even if a formal offer letter is going to take longer. Send them an email that says, hey, we're going to make you an offer. It's going to be for this amount. We've discussed benefits. Let me know what you think. And the formal offer letter will be, in your inbox tomorrow or whenever that's going to be. Email's totally fine here. You'll read weird old advice that like you have to call people to make offers. I don't, whatever, send an email, it's fine. Speed is really the important thing. You want to get this out the moment you know that this is the person you're going to make an offer to. Don't play games. Make the best offer you possibly can. This isn't the time to try to save, to try to save $5,000 on an offer. You have a range. Your interview will have established the candidate's position within that range, middle of the range, bottom of the range, top of the range. Make them an offer where they are on that range. Make the best offer you possibly can. This is advice that's usually given to candidates, but it applies to managers as well. Remember that when you're negotiating the entire package. You're not just going back and forth on the base salary. If they ask for a number for base salary that's above the top of your range, talk about everything else. Tell them, okay, that's, the top of our range is whatever, so I can't go up from there, but here are all the ways that I can be flexible. What works for you? You should definitely expect negotiation and be gracious about it. If you're a jerk when someone counteroffers, you'll probably lose them, or at the very least, you'll start off your relationship with this person on a pretty poor footing. And lastly, if you can't come to terms, it's just business. No hard feelings. Be gracious. Thank them for their time. Offer to keep in touch. You never know when you'll see them again for another job. Maybe you'll be on the other side of the interviewing table later in your career. It is never a bad idea to be very nice to someone at the very end of a negotiation. So that's my time. I may have a couple minutes for questions. We'll let Andy decide on that one. But if you like what I had to say today, you'll probably like the stuff I wrote on my blog. I write about management, mostly from an engineering manager perspective, and a lot about hiring. You can follow me on the Bird site. And if there are questions that you want to ask me, you really can email me, jacob@jacobian.org. I have no SLA for responses, but I generally try to respond to everyone who emails me at some point. And thanks again for the invite. Really enjoyed being here.